Okay, folks, Andrew Bopros here. I want to talk about the potential Chargers players that may be moved or traded during draft day, right? And again, it might not be first round, second round, could be a third round, who knows? But I think there's a good chance that one or two of these players might get moved. And I'm going to talk about why. It's going to be a pretty interesting video, guys. Again, we're getting ready. We're going to go live for the draft, as you know. Plenty to talk about, guys. So, as always, let's get into it. Okay, folks, always like and subscribe if you do enjoy the content. I'm Andrew Bopro. So, plenty to talk about here. Again, a lot of this is speculation. This is just kind of interesting information. I'm kind of recapping some of the general rumors. But it is interesting to discuss what's going to happen on game day or game day. I keep saying game day, draft day, right? And so, bottom line, there are some players that have been rumored to potentially be packaged in some sort of trade. And I want to recap this. I know James tomorrow is probably going to talk about the roster and roster needs. Kind of, again, one final video to recap before the draft, before we go live. We're going to have plenty of content this week, guys. So we're going to do, obviously, draft recaps, who we get, what we like about this guy, what we don't like about this person, whomever, whatever, all the above. So we're going to have plenty of conversations. But leave a comment down below if you're actually planning on being there in Green Bay for the draft. That would be amazing. I mean, I know there's some, draft day parties that are going to be there as well, too. So let us know down below. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about potential players that might be traded. Well, one that's really come up a lot is Jamari Sawer. And, it's interesting. I really like Jamari. He stepped on the scene, did a great job filling in for Rashawn Slater when he went out and did a great job. I think he's played on both sides of the ball and done a great job. I mean, I think he's an awesome offensive lineman, but the argument is he's probably not a long-term solution for this team, right? So the thought is, well, you can move him away. Now, I'm going to talk about a few other offensive linemen here in a second, but, again, we have not made, Mekhi Becton really makes a big difference, and Andre James makes a big difference in this conversation. So that offensive line room is becoming a bit crowded. So we are a little bit overstaffed, if you will. Now, again, Jim Harbaugh likes competition. We obviously need depth, all the above, right? Now, but again, bottom line, what's going to happen with Jamari? And he's got value. Like, teams like him. There's teams that really need him or could use a really good guard or someone that could also play tackle as well, as we all know. And we all know, bottom line, especially in Jim Harbaugh's system, he wants you to be able to play right tackle, right guard, left guard. He wants you to be interoperable. He just looks at it like, nah, you need to do it all. It's a big part of the conversation. Okay, my point in saying all this is, again, there's been a lot of rumors that we're going to go after potentially draft day. We go for Mark Andrews. So there has been a lot of people proposing a trade that could potentially happen for Mark Andrews. I think this was more valid before we had the Tyler Conklin signing, right? I think, but let's make this very clear. Having a guy like this would be absolutely amazing. I also do think we're going to draft a tight end. So I don't know that I really feel I don't think there's a high probability we actually go after specifically Mark Andrews. But the reason why this is becoming more of a big conversation more recently is Bleacher Report. Joe Moten thinks this could happen, right? Again, Bleacher Report, this guy I'm not even sure who Mo Moten is. Baltimore Ravens tight end Mark Andrews is back on the trading block after he was re-signed. Polarizing comments from general manager Eric DeCosta leading Moten to break down the potential trade packages for the former All-Pro. Look, I just think there's a lot to be said about that, and it's tough, right? I think, if you look at his video, the Carolina Panthers are one that they might trade him to. The Colts are a big conversation piece, right? The Jaguars, of course, and then obviously the Chargers, and there's one other team, the Jets. Now, because the Jets lost Conklin, I'm like, well, why didn't they just re-sign Conklin? Anyways, doesn't matter to me, whatever. But my point is, it's tough because I sit back and ask myself this question, right? Do we really need him? Sure, we'd always like another player, and he's a good player. Now he's getting a little older. He's really not someone there. But my argument with the Chargers would be that this is a very deep tight end, draft. I think we're probably just going to draft a younger tight end, but there is a chance Mark Andrews could be traded game day, and the Chargers are listed in the mix. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of a wrinkle to this to some degree, right? Now, again, we were talking about Jamari Sawer. The Ravens need a guard, okay? But I also think there's two other possibilities. They may want this other player over Jamari. Well, before I do that, here's exactly what you would see. Here's the proposed trade. I didn't switch it over. Sorry about that, guys. But the Chargers would get Mark Andrews, and the Ravens would get receive Jamari Sawer and a 2025 fourth round pick. You know, interesting concept, right? Now, this may make sense. Now, I would say this. This is the one caveat I may make where this could make sense for the Chargers is if we wanted, a premium top tier tight end, right? Our boy Loveland, if he's not available, which I don't think he'll be at 22, right? Then this becomes a little more palatable, right? But if not, no, not going to work out, right? So again, that's sort of my general caveat to this conversation. But again, Chargers trade Jamari Sawer, fourth round pick, and in a proposed deal. Whether it happens or not, who knows? But here's the wrinkles. The other guy that I think could potentially be is Zion Johnson. Look, I like Zion Johnson, but it's clear I don't think we're going to be giving him a fifth-year extension. I think he could potentially be trade bait at some point. Now, again, I'm talking about draft day, right? But it could even happen after draft day, right? So I'm partially saying all of this because I do think there's a chance that all these players could be moved at some point. Zion's great. I think he's done great, but he has not really lived up to his high draft pick. Okay, to put it mildly, like I love him to death. He's been great. Zion, again, look, first round draft pick in 2022. He just has been okay, not great. Now Zion started his rookie season at left guard before being kicked into right guard in 2023. He started 49 to possible 51 games, so he has longevity in the league. And really, Zion probably came off of his worst year in his career last year, which is really interesting. Career worst, 7 sacks, right? So, you could argue that, well, he doesn't have a lot of draft value. Well, the thing about Zion is he can play a lot of positions. He's very versatile. We're already talking about putting him in center. Might be a better center than a guard. So we'll see how that plays out. But my point is, it'd be interesting to see. At this point, we're probably not re-signing him, so you may as well trade him and get something for him. So again, draft day, potential trade, or maybe something after with injuries, that potentially could happen in some of these players and teams' camps, right? So, who knows? Right before the season, like, crap, I lost my starting guard. Okay, who's available? Hey, the Chargers might want to trade Zion. We really like him. We like what he does. Maybe he fits their scheme better. Maybe it's zone rather than gap. We run more gap now than zone. So maybe they might say, well, he's a better zone blocker, which you could argue Zion probably is because we ran a lot more zone running prior to this last season under, Jim Harbaugh. So again, a lot to be discussed on that. But the other guy that I think could potentially get traded off is Trey Pipkins. Now, Trey Pipkins, as we know, has a pretty high salary, right? And, again, where does he go? Is he just going to be a backup to the rest of the offensive line? Is he going to be 6 offensive lineman? Right now, I would assume so. But, the reality is Trey Pipkins is, how much is he getting paid? So cap number, $9.2 million. Now, again, if they cut him pre-June 1st, we would save around $6.7 million or put him in some sort of package. That could make some sense, right? To me, I just look at him and say, well, do we really need him, right? With Mekhi Becton coming in, dude, that guy's just a beast and a bruiser, right? So you partially think, well, what are we doing with this guy? If we trade him off, we could potentially do a lot more with, a pick. Again, everything that I showed you as far as a potential trade, we could potentially get with, any of these other 2 players with Zion or Trey Pipkins. And who knows, maybe the Ravens want these guys over them. So we'll see how that plays out. But I do think they're trade bait, and I do think we're probably going to be drafting some more offensive linemen in the draft anyways, right? So again, that's why I do think no matter what, these guys could still be traded even after the draft, if not traded on draft day. One other guy that I think I want to talk about that is going to be an interesting one to discuss is potentially Quentin Johnston. Now, you might say to me, well, yeah, nobody wants him. He's not good and he sucks. And I understand the hate. I get it, guys. Let's just recap what his numbers were last year, right? Quentin was actually pretty good, very high draft pick, as you know. Again, he struggled through his first couple of seasons coming off 2024 campaign. These numbers might surprise you. 55 passes for 711 yards and 8 touchdowns. Those aren't terrible numbers, but they're not great, right? Not great for a first-round draft pick. So you might say, okay, why would we trade him? Why would somebody else want? Guys, he's only 23 years old, okay? He's very, very young, very young. And the NFL, college NFL is a very big jump. I personally think if he stays with the Chargers, he could get to 1,000 yards or 1,000 yards this next season. I really do. I really completely believe that. Now, you might say that's crazy. There's no way that happens. Look, I think he was doing very well at the beginning of the season, and then he got a case of the yips towards the end of the season, right? He had a couple games where he was just balling out, and it just came together. There are some things that he has problems with, concentration being the main one. But so let's talk about why it would matter. Well, the one thing that I would say, you could use him as trade bait for potentially trading up to get someone like a T-Mac or a Golden. Maybe we're at like 17 or 18. They're not going to go past the Broncos. Let's go get him. Or maybe Omarion Hampton could be another person that we go after, right? If they wanted to trade up a little bit, swap picks, hey, we will give you Quentin Johnston and we want your pick at 19 or 18, something like that. That might work, right? And then maybe a 6th or 7th round pick, something of that nature. That's where it could potentially be worked into a package deal on draft day. Again, extremely hypothetical, extremely just why. Well, the question why would be, really, if we go get a T-Mac or we go get, maybe a Golden, we might say, well, we don't need Quentin anymore, right? We need to move on from him. And that team might see enough value in him and say, you know what? We like him. He's good. He fits our system well. Let's go get him. And look, guys, he's 23 years old. I understand. I'm not here to, look, he's made some really bad drops. You know that. I know that. But the bottom line is he's still very young and has a lot of football ahead of himself. And I think he can really kind of turn it around. So these are just a few of the draft day potential trades. I mean, are there other people you think that we could potentially go after? Leave a comment down below. I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are. Cannot wait for the draft, guys. It'll be a very exciting time. I really think Joe Ortiz is going to have a lot of it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see this. I have always been on the same alignment with Joe Ortiz and the way this coaching staff has gone with. Again, I kind of wish we had gotten a wide receiver or pick number 5 because we're not going to be there anytime soon. At least I don't believe we will be. But bottom line, Joel has absolutely been amazing. So, in Harbaugh and Ortiz, we trust. So, plenty to talk about here, guys. So, as always, Andrew Boltbros. See you guys in the next one.
Hey, what's up? Cameron Dick here watching the Bolt Bros podcast.